Welcome to the show that takes up no more than 5 minutes of your time, but could help you gain massive real estate knowledge. It's 5 Minutes in Real Estate with best-selling author Shane Willis.
Well, hello. Good morning. It's Shane Willis, the Pensacola real estate expert, bringing you today's episode. Man, it's been nice these last couple of mornings, hasn't it? I'm sitting here in the low 70s in July. It's gorgeous out here. I want to tell you before we even start talking about what we're going to record today, I want to let you know about a blog post I actually just posted because I was starting to get some questions over the past couple of weeks. We wound up writing one. And it was 7 things to consider about your present home and retirement. So is retirement in your home that you're in right now the right fit or not? It was just some things to consider. So I want you to consider some possibilities. Get over to shanewillis.com/blog. And I'm sure you can find that one. It'll probably be towards the top unless you're listening to this well after it's been recorded. All right, today we're going to talk about how the Fed raising interest rates, which we all know they're going to do at least one more time this year, but more than likely 2 more times this year, how that's going to affect us, how that's going to affect this market. They do that for a monetary policy. We're kind of out of that recession, that crash that we had back in 2008. So they had to lower them to be able to stimulate some stuff. Now they're starting to raise them again. The banks are enjoying record profits because they're starting to get some of that bad debt off of their books. If you've noticed, foreclosures have become really, really low. Short sales really, really low. So a lot of that debt, that toxic debt that was eating up the balance sheets for the banks has been dwindling quite a bit. So now that they're starting to get that off, we're starting to see record profits for the banks again. They just got finished reporting, I think Chase, Goldman, there was a few of them that reported second quarters and it was record profits. Matter of fact, they all went through a stress test. Only 2 of them didn't quite pass. They just had a couple recommendations. Everybody else had a great stress test from the CFPB, which means they can continue lending more than what they were now. It's also why we're starting to see some of the Alt-A stuff come back. Do I think it's a complete circle and we're going to be back in a subprime crash? No. I think it's much, much more conservative, but that is a market that has been underserved for at least 8 or 9 years. Anyways, how do these interest rates hikes that the Fed's going to do now affect us in the housing market? Well, if you're a buyer, waiting a few months to buy honestly may result in waiting a few years. When you start to look, one of the things that you have to do when you go to buy a property is you have to qualify with a DTI. That's debt to income ratio. Most of your government-backed loans want you at about 45%, meaning only 45% of your gross income goes towards your housing expense and your debt. But I should say that it's all your debt, not just housing. So cars, credit cards, not utilities. Utilities are considered living expenses, but they want no more than 45. Some will take you up to 50. But if a payment change, if an interest rate rises from 4.5 to say 5, or 5 to 6, and it changes the payment $100 and some odd a month, it could push your debt to income ratio up over. So waiting a few months for these Fed rate hikes to happen, which inevitably means the mortgage rates are going to rise because it's costing the banks more money to borrow the money. So they have to pass that along to us, the consumer. That means it could wait a couple of years because you may have to have your income rise as well so that you can qualify for a debt-to-income ratio, or you may have to spend time paying down on the car or whatever the rest of the debt is. So waiting a few months to buy could wind up waiting a few years to buy. That's one way that does that. If you're a buyer as well, right now I would concentrate on already built homes. If you're getting a new construction, fantastic. If your debt to income ratio is way low and you're okay with a 5.5% interest rate, so be it. That's fine. You can do the new construction, build the home the way you want to. Like I had some clients right now that we just went under contract. Well, those are really pretty. Squirrel. We went under contract this past weekend. They needed to move in quickly, but they really wanted a new construction. Well, there are some places that have some new construction already built. So that's exactly what we did. We walked through the property. It was already done. All we got to do is punch list. We'll probably wind up closing that property in about 3 weeks, because those particular clients of mine are going to be homeless in about 2. So they're renting a vacation place for a week, hoping that we can close out this loan in 3 weeks. Anyways, if I would concentrate on those, here's why. Because you can't lock your rate, you can't lock that interest rate in for more than about 60 days. So if it's not completed or very, very near completed, you're going to risk those rising interest rates, which again goes back to our first one. If it's a debt to income ratio problem, it could be now it's throwing you out of being able to get the loan. Sellers who wait to list might not sell. The low inventory is there, but with every rate increase, the balance begins to correct. I think I said this yesterday. You will hear all the time from real estate agents, it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell. Well, that's not necessarily true. Right now, I'm telling sellers in most price points, it's a fantastic time to sell right now. But as that balance inventory comes in, we're going to start to see a little bit longer, if not more properties not sell. That's always a tough conversation I have with every seller when I meet with them. One of the first things I ask them is, what is the plan if it doesn't sell? I usually get this dumb look because, I'm there to sell their house, and they're like, well, then you haven't done your job. Okay, let's take that to the side. What are your plans? And so it may, we're waiting to sell, you may not have that same imbalance, meaning tip toward the seller's side because of an inventory. So it may not sell because of it. Buying down an interest rate. This is both to buyers and sellers. Buying down the interest rate is going to start coming back. We did that a lot in the early 2000s, late 90s. When I would see an average interest rate of 7-8%, somebody would buy it down. They would prepay, and that was negotiated in the contract. So as a buyer, you may want to start negotiating that. As a seller, you may want to offer that. Be open to that. Understand there's a cost to it. It may cost you a point, it may cost you 2 points, but you can buy that rate back down. Meaning, let's say the average rate next year, this time next year, is 5.5%. You may be able to spend a point or a point and a half and buy that rate back down to 4.5, which helps qualify, debt to income ratio, sell the house, or if you're the buyer, you can buy the house. That's going to start to be another idea, and one that needs to be negotiated on both sides of the table. The final bit of information is talking about appreciation. As we continue to see rates rise, you're going to start to see demand wane a little. In our area, it's probably not going to wane as much, but it is going to wane a little. Meaning, there's not going to be as many buyers because they're not going to qualify. We go back to number one, that debt to income ratio problem. So they're not going to be able to qualify. And as we start to see that wane a little, and you start to see the inventory rise some, well, that means that our appreciation is going to have to slow. Now, if you've listened to any of the podcasts this year, when I start talking about appreciation, I tell you that all the economists, even the bears, think that we're going to have about a 5% appreciation over the next 5 years, or 1% a year. The bulls think we're going to have something like 30, or 6% a year. I think we're going to float somewhere in the middle. I think right now we're floating at about 4%. Do I think that that could slow with these interest rates rise? Absolutely. I think that you're only going to wind up getting about 2. I don't think you're going to get down to 1, but you may, depending on the price point. So, whether you're buying or selling, especially if you're selling right now, that appreciation may start to slow some. But if you're buying, the appreciation is still there. It's not the depreciation we saw in 2008, 2009. So there's 5 ways that these interest rate hikes are going to actually affect us here in the real estate market. This is coming. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is not a what if scenario podcast episode. This is coming. This is what's going to happen. So plan accordingly. You've just got a glimpse into the future. If you're even thinking about selling, you may want to reach out to me. If you're thinking about buying, you may want to reach out to me. Let's discuss plans. Let's figure things out. Even if it is 6 months down the road, okay. Now we know when we start planning to buy or sell, we know kind of what's coming. And we can prep for it. As long as you know what's coming, it's like a hurricane. If you know what's coming, you can prep for it. You can put the window shields up and everything else. But it's when you get blindsided that things go bad. All right, that's all I got for you today. As always, if you've not subscribed to get our tips, tricks, graphs, infographics, get over to 5minutesinrealestate.com. It's 5minutesinrealestate.com. Also, get over to your player of choice and subscribe to the podcast. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, YouTube, LinkedIn. I think I told you guys that. I found out we're on LinkedIn. One of the guys showed me that the other day. I went, wow, okay, cool. Because we started getting some comments on LinkedIn. Great. So we got all that stuff. Get over to your player of choice, hit subscribe, give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, give me a nice comment. Hey, nice episode, whatever. Be nice in the comments. And finally, I always end the podcast the same way. I do not ask for any money for these, although it costs me money to do these. I do ask, however, that if I brought any value to you on this or any other episode, that you share it on social media. Thanks for listening. Have a great Wednesday.